Hi, I'm Peter Whittle from the New Culture Forum. Now, over the past few weeks, you might have read reports or seen reports about some of the disturbing developments that are happening at our universities. The University of Kent now requires students who are just starting their degrees to do a number of questionnaires in which white privilege, of course, features very heavily. In one of the more strange requirements, they're asked to consider whether wearing second-hand clothes or swearing a lot are somehow signs of white privilege in action. Now, I was at University of Kent back in 1979 to 82, and it was a pretty left-wing place. There's no question about that. There were the usual sit-ins, there were the usual demonstrations, but these all came from the students, basically, from the bottom up. The difference now is that these new questionnaires, which are growing and growing throughout our universities, are being imposed by the university authorities themselves. So it's very, very much top down. This is insidious and leads to a kind of groupthink, which of course I would say is its whole intention. Similarly, St Andrews, which is one of our greatest universities, one of the top three, students now are being asked to consider their personal guilt when it comes to issues of diversity. Then they get awarded certain stars if they give the right answer. Then at the University of Exeter, we have the university authorities there recommending that lecturers might want to encourage students to look more at tweets and social media because the archives, the traditional archives in the library, are perhaps a little bit too Eurocentric and too male and too old. As a result, therefore, the whole idea of libraries and archives coming to use in universities will be lost. As I said, this is spreading all over our university campuses, and it will mean that whole generations grow up thinking exactly the same thing, indoctrinated, in other words. So what do we do about this? Well, there's one thing. Many of us are basically asked from time to time by younger people, should I go to university? If so, what should I do? Increasingly, one maybe should say to them, hang on for a minute. Don't immediately think it's a good thing to go to university. Do you really want to be indoctrinated and at the same time pay for the privilege and be landed with thousands of pounds of debt? There might be better ways to start your life. But also, in the long term, there has to be a massive change. And as I've said on the New Culture Forum about different fields such as the media and the arts before, I think we now have to consider actually starting our own institutions. It's happening in America, very, very much in response to the woke attack there. This is something which, when it comes to the future, we have got to think about. Offer an alternative. I would say that many of these places are simply beyond reform. Now, this government, worried about free speech on campus, has going through Parliament at the moment the Higher Education Bill. And in it, there are certain supposed safeguards for free speech, which basically comes down to the university making sure that free speech is safeguarded. These are very, very tepid measures, and frankly, they are not covered by the sort of things that I have just described. So I think the time has come where we have to look outside the system that we have been used to now for decades and decades and decades. We have to think of building our own institutions. That will be the way forward, and it will be the only way to fight back for academic freedom. Thank you.